What if I told you that one of the Church's most silent and traditional voices just stepped into a bold, unexpected mission? Sounds unbelievable, right? But it's true. And trust me, this isn't the kind of headline you usually get out of the Vatican. Hey there, and welcome back. If you've ever felt like trying to understand what's happening in the Catholic Church is like chasing a moving train, you're not alone. One moment, things seem calm and steady. And the next, boom, a new pope, a new direction. And now, a surprising appointment that's catching the attention of Catholics around the world. And at the center of it all, none other than Cardinal Robert Sarah. Now, if you've heard that name before, you already know this isn't some routine reshuffle. And if you haven't, don't worry. You're about to understand why Cardinal Sarah is one of the most quietly influential figures in the modern church, and how his new role could reshape the way Catholics pray, lead, and live their faith. So here's what we're covering in this video: who Cardinal Sarah is, and why so many people look to him for spiritual guidance, what Pope Leo XIV just announced, and why it's not business as usual, what this means for the Church, especially in our noisy, distracted age, and how this could spark a spiritual renewal that's long overdue. Let's dive in. Who is Cardinal Robert Sarah? Born in the small village of Urus in Guinea, West Africa, Robert Sarah grew up in a devout Catholic family under tough political conditions. He entered seminary as a teenager and eventually became one of the youngest bishops in the world, appointed at just 34 years old by Pope John Paul II. But his story isn't just about rising through the ranks. It's about a man who has consistently stood for the essentials of faith: prayer, silence, humility, and the sacred. Cardinal Sarah is not a man of flashy statements or ideological battles. He speaks few words, but when he does, people pay attention, because his message cuts through the noise. He's the author of powerful books like God or Nothing, The Power of Silence, and The Day is Now Far Spent. These works have struck a chord with countless Catholics, especially those who feel spiritually lost or overwhelmed by the modern world. His writing is bold but peaceful, challenging but full of hope. He constantly reminds us that God speaks in silence, and that we must slow down and listen. During Pope Francis's papacy, Cardinal Sarah served as prefect of the Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments, a major Vatican post that oversees the liturgy, the Mass, and the Church's global worship life. But over time, it became clear that Cardinal Sarah's vision, deeply rooted in tradition, beauty, and sacred silence, wasn't fully aligned with the Vatican's evolving direction. Eventually, he stepped down in 2021, and many thought his time in the spotlight had ended. Turns out, God had other plans. A new role with a deep purpose, fast forward to today, and to the newly elected Pope Leo XIV. Just a few weeks into his papacy, he surprised everyone at a Vatican press conference with a major announcement. He introduced a new role, one never seen before: Apostolic Advisor for Sacred Identity and Liturgical Renewal. At first, it sounds like a mouthful. But make no mistake, this isn't just a title. It's a mission, a message, and it tells us something big about where Pope Leo wants to take the Church. The goal? To help the Catholic Church reconnect with its sacred roots through worship, leadership, and personal holiness. And he chose Cardinal Sarah, of all people, to lead that charge. This new role positions Sarah as a global spiritual advisor, working directly with bishops, seminaries, and dioceses around the world to restore a sense of reverence in the liturgy, beauty, silence, mystery, sacred music, incense, meaningful gestures. Encourage deeper formation among priests and leaders, not just intellectual training, but interior transformation. Lead retreats for bishops and clergy, focused on the Eucharist, the desert, and spiritual renewal. Shape new liturgical guidelines, ones that aim to center the Church once again on wonder, awe, and the presence of God. There are even whispers from inside the Vatican that Pope Leo XIV may declare a year of sacred renewal. a global spiritual initiative calling the entire church back to prayer, identity, and mission. Why this matters now? Let's talk about timing, because that's not an accident either. Right now, the Catholic Church is in a moment of tension and transition. You can feel it. There's a growing divide between tradition and modernity, between sacred reverence and casual spirituality, between those who hunger for silence and those who are swept up in the noise of the world. A lot of Catholics feel confused. Some feel ignored. Others feel spiritually dry, unsure of what's next. And many young people, they've walked away completely, not out of anger, but out of emptiness. They haven't seen something beautiful enough to believe, and Pope Leo seems to understand this. And instead of choosing a side in the culture wars, he's doing something deeper. He's inviting the church to go inward before it tries to move forward. And Cardinal Sarah? He's uniquely suited to lead that journey. This isn't about politics, it's about presence. It's not about winning debates. It's about finding God again, and maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of a renewal the church has been longing for. A quiet voice at the center of a loud world. When the news broke about Cardinal Robert Sarah's new appointment, reactions poured in from all corners of the Catholic world. Some were surprised, some were inspired, others quietly nodded, as if to say, "Of course, who else could lead this?" Shortly after the announcement, Cardinal Sarah gave a brief but powerful interview. As always, his words were simple, but they carried weight. He said, "I thought my mission in public life had ended, but God always surprises. We must be ready when He calls, even when we feel tired, even when we don't understand why." There's something deeply human in that, something every one of us can relate to. Because let's be honest, we've all had seasons where we thought we were done with striving, done with being seen, done with giving, maybe even done with hope. But then, God steps in. Not with fanfare, but with quiet clarity. And He says, "I'm not finished with you yet." That's what makes Cardinal Sarah's return to public mission so powerful. He wasn't seeking attention. He wasn't campaigning for influence. In fact, he had embraced a life of silence, retreat, and contemplation, far from the spotlight. But perhaps it's precisely that silence that qualifies him for this moment, because we're living in one of the noisiest, most distracted times in church history. Social media arguments, political division, confusion in doctrine, fatigue in the pews, it's everywhere. And in the middle of all that, God is calling us back to the sacred, back to reverence, back to stillness, mystery, and beauty, back to the place where we stop performing and simply listen. And who better to lead us there than a man who has spent his life doing just that? In a culture that shouts for attention, Cardinal Sarah reminds us of the power of quiet. In a church tempted to entertain, he points us back to the altar. In an age obsessed with relevance, he dares to speak about the eternal. This isn't just about one man or one title. It's about a spiritual moment, a chance for the church to pause, to take a breath, and to remember who she is. Because maybe, just maybe, what the church needs right now isn't a new program, a flashy campaign, or a better PR strategy. Maybe what we need is to return. Return to the upper room where the apostles waited in silence. Return to the desert where Jesus fasted and listened. Return to the tabernacle where Christ waits for us, quietly, patiently, lovingly. So now that you've seen what's happening, what do you think? Could Cardinal Sarah's role help spark a deeper renewal in the church? Or is it just a symbolic gesture? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.